Hello and welcome to another new episode of the Game Informer Show, live from E3. Woo! With our studio audience of 2 people. Can I hear you in the back? Let the folks know you're real, Ben Rees. I'm Ben Hansen. I'm joined by
Imran Khan,
Joe Juba,
Kim Wallace.
We have a lot to cover. There's all of Nintendo's news, which is a lot to digest. We're going to be talking about that in a little bit with Ben Rees and Serial. They'll jump on the couch. It'll be a great time. Also, some of us have seen the Cyberpunk Behind Closed Doors demo, which is very exciting. Final Fantasy 7, we have to talk about it, maybe some other odds and ends. So the way tonight's going to work is it's us talking about things we played, things we've seen, very exciting things from E3, and then in about an hour, we're going to take a little bit of an intermission. We have a beautiful musical interlude for everybody while we get developers set up, because in theory, unless somebody bails, we're also going to have 3 developers on the podcast later on, talking about, let's say, moving beyond the world of shooters as a rough theme if you had to somehow lump people together in some abstract theme. But for now, we should dive right into Cyberpunk 2077. Yeah. Okay, so there was an hour-long Behind Closed Doors demo?
50 minutes, but
like
close
50
enough.
minutes.
Okay, it seems like they are very much taking the same approach that they did last year of, hey, that worked really well as far as buzz, to like keep it hidden from the community and from the internet for a while. They said in our demo that like, we'll show this demo publicly around Gamescom.
Yeah, that's what they kind of did last year.
Yeah, it just dropped on the internet one day and it worked out super well.
Yeah, I guess so.
Here's my question about that,
please.
though, is that like that approach to a demo works great when people are really hungry for details about what your game is, how it plays, that sort of thing. I wonder, like, I enjoyed the demo a lot. I think that game looks great. I don't know that it captures the same sort of like lightning that it did before, when it's like, when you already know some of how the systems work. It's the stuff that was interesting to me was a lot smaller, a lot of the like more detail oriented little touches rather than the thrill of like, oh wow, this is what this game is.
I think it makes more sense from an not from an informational standpoint, from the marketing now, because we're like 9 months from release at this point.
Yeah.
So just saying like, we had the same demo, let's just use it again, makes sense.
I guess so, but I still think there's going to be a fair amount of buzz. And I know it's frustrating for the internet to try and figure out what is in this demo exactly. They were very particular this year too, of like, no recording of any kind, no audio recordings this time. Hot shot, which totally leaked last year, right? Yeah.
Which was, I have thoughts about the ethics of that, but.
Oh, really? Interesting. So with the Cyberpunk demo, Kim, do you want to? Hang on. First of all, not only we got the demo, but you actually did an interview today with somebody from CD Projekt.
Yeah, the Quest director.
Oh, interesting.
I would butcher his name if I try to say it.
We will not make you do that, I promise.
He even laughed when he introduced himself. He's like, I have to give you my card because my name is just ridiculous. And no one will ever spell it correctly. So my apologies. Very nice guy. But yeah, I got to ask him some more nitty-gritties on kind of the RPG systems, which is obviously where I'm interested in, and more about characters. I guess, the worry people had with this when they showed it last year was they were surprised with, the first person, the shooting mechanics. Like, they're like, how much is this really an RPG? Are they going more in like that Mass Effect direction where it gets lighter and lighter with, the elements? And I think there's more there than actually was in The Witcher, to be honest with you. When I talked to them today, they were talking about all the different gear that you can find that affect your. It seems more stat heavy than The Witcher was, for sure. And you have all the skills that you can unlock, which are cool to your play style. And then in addition to that, you have those. What are the things that you can plug? Modifications that you can plug in. I'm like, I must know that.
Yeah, and they showed us the perk tree also. The actual like the thing that you see that like you have. I think it's like 5 core stats.
And that's what I actually wanted to see. Like I wanted to see how that stuff works, because while I love The Witcher 3, one thing to kind of knock is that upgrade system wasn't as exciting as it could be as you went on. So I was hoping they kind of upped the ante there, and I feel like there is a lot there to play. The thing that they're really doing this year now is they're trying to, they expanded, on like, we can tell a story in an open world, but now they want to do like, we can do that and we can give you your own choice in how you play this game. And I think that's going to be really interesting for a lot of different people. And I see so many different games in it, almost like you get that Deus Ex vibe of like the sneak arounds and finding that. You get like, some of the gunplay that looks great. And
Yeah. I think.
Are you pessimistic about this game? I feel like it's odd. It seems like very clearly the game of the show at this point, right?
I don't know. I mean, the best way I can say it, this game looks great, and I am super excited for it. And I think a lot of my qualms with it have more to do sort of on the almost like on the PR or marketing angle of it, of like this is what we saw a similar thing I think last year of you go into a situation, you see how it plays out, you have some different options for it, but what I was hoping for this year that I didn't get, and I'm not saying this isn't there. This is CD Projekt Red. They did The Witcher. They know how to do an open world. They know how to do interesting quests and characters, all of that. I don't think that is necessarily on display in this year's demo. I wanted a sense, I think, a little more clearly of what differentiates this game from Deus Ex. It has that sort of, that maybe the place that you're going to do your quest felt instanced, kind of like a level in the same way that they felt
they
like
did
levels
say,
in Deus
and I
Ex,
talked to them today, they did say they have obviously the 6 districts that we knew about, but then they have little sub districts within those, and then they said they have levels in those districts, which is what we saw.
Yeah. So
and then they have all these freaking factions that you can meet within the game, and you can there's the bandit type, there's these little events are going to occur in the world, but you don't get a good sense of what the variety is in the world.
I feel like when you're 2 years out, whenever we saw it last year, the fantasy of all that ambition, it's okay, you can show us later, that's fine.
Yeah.
But now
it's later.
Yeah, there's no more E3s between now and the release of that game, so I want to know details about these things. I want to see, can you go into every individual building and see the world populated and all that.
I wanted a little more of that sort of living the cyberpunk fantasy, living that being immersed in that world. And like I said, it's not that I don't think the game will have that stuff. It's that's what I was hoping to see and didn't.
Less than, here's the narrative beat, right? Here's a very focused mission where we're working through this, which is about halfway through the game. And it's an interesting mission. It seems like a real pivotal turning point mission in the context of that story. But you want roaming the world, taking your time.
Which again, it could be an E3 demo problem of, is it interesting to go through these buildings and find 5 people?
Yeah, and then, but there's also an issue of I don't know, I've been doing this a long time. Maybe I've seen too many E3 demos that are just hey, you could do it this way, but what if you did it this way? That is a genre of demo. That is a thing that's out there a lot.
The way I looked at it was they're just trying to give us a little more under those gameplay systems. Because while they did show us a bit last year, there's only a few things that you saw. So you saw the gunplay with the special attacks where you could bounce it off the walls and go through the walls and all that. Those cool attacks. But we didn't really get to see much beyond that. I felt like this did more with the melee attacks to show. And, I love that you can hack turrets. I love that you can take somebody and put them as your armor as you go. There just seems to be a lot of possibilities in what you do in each of these situations. And I think that's what more they were trying to show. Those 2 playthroughs were very different. So for people... Obviously, I was going to say people didn't see the demo. Most people watching this probably didn't see the demo.
I'd say 100%. Yeah.
As someone who did not see the demo, what you're describing to me just sounds like Deus Ex.
But a little bit. You can say that about last year's demo, but it's the production. But the production values are off the effing charts.
Yes, that's what I'm going to say. It seems very much more polished, and like I said, I feel like I have more options than I had in Deus Ex as well in how I approach situations. So we saw 2 different playthroughs. One was more. A hacking type of playthrough, Netrunner, and then the other one was more of a brute strength where she could open up doors with her hands, and she could stand her own in a fight in a way that you wouldn't.
It was interesting too because normally that kind of demo is okay, here's someone who's stealthy and here's someone who's killing everything they see, and that wasn't the case in both cases. The characters were approaching things stealthily. But in one case, it was through more hacking, and in the other case was through a little more
sneak,
some brute forcing elements. But it wasn't that classic distinction of either you're a ghost or you're rampaging through it.
And I think that goes back to their philosophy of they didn't want to make this assign classes. They want you to play it how you want. You have a little bit of options at your disposal. You can certainly upgrade and get yourself better in one versus the other, but I like having that because I tell you, I go on missions all the time with the plan, and then I do something stupid, and I'm like, well, now I alerted everyone, or now I gotta change course. And I don't know, I thought what I saw looked very, very promising, but I will agree with you. I would have liked to see more of that world, but from everything that they've said about it, it seems like they're just holding back because of story reasons. But we did see this new part at the end of the demo. I don't know if you want to go there yet.
Okay, I'm debating how much to walk through this thing because I have like a stupid amount of notes about like beat by beat and stuff like that.
We could warn people. We could just say, hey, we're going to go through the demo beat by beat. If you don't want to watch it, skip ahead.
Why don't you can you see what people are saying on there? Why don't you just ask them what they want?
On this?
Yeah.
Oh, they're saying a million things.
Oh, they're saying
feet and
Kimberly sucks,
Game Informer in general. Lovely things. I'm trying to fix something real quick before I could dive completely into that.
It's about feet.
It is not about feet.
Okay.
In general. But so the demo starts, right, where it's like, okay, this year we're going to focus on the male version of V, the main character. Last year we focused on the female character. You're in an area of town called Pacifica. It is one of 6 districts, right? Mm-hmm. And so, Joe, how is Pacifica? How would you describe this place?
It's run down.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's built on the concept of this was a place that was designed to be high-end, idyllic, sort of like residential, commercial.
The tourists.
They only got the job half done and walked away.
Yeah,
so it's all these abandoned buildings. And
it's interesting because it's not necessarily like something opulent that fell into ruin. It's something that was that didn't even get a chance to become opulent before it fell into ruin.
And it was just completely abandoned, and it's also a strong like Haitian Creole population, so throughout the entire demo, people are speaking a different language, but because you have this chip, it translates it on the fly.
I wish that trip was real.
This is and not only that, it's a really cool effect because like there's been that narrative conceit in other games like Mass Effect, right? Where it's like, hey, aliens speak to you, but you just automatically understand them. And all that translates is like to you as a player, it just shows you the English text down on the screen. Right. I like the flourish. I like the effect of it shows you the text that is like for a split second
as it's
unreadable. And then as they're talking, it sort of unfolds into readable English, not so slow that you're like, come on,
it's perfect,
come on. But it's also slow enough that it like, keeps you constantly reminded that like someone's speaking to you in a different language.
Well, on top of that too, it's like for people shouting in the background and stuff, because they can't do that translation thing, they'll, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like it would have basically the subtitles, but kind of diegetic subtitles where it would be like floating over their name, stuff like that in the distance as they're shouting in this pretty populated area.
And I don't know if that is a thing that is like an actual part of the world, or if that's just something to make it easier for people to sort of parse what's happening in the demo, if that's an accessibility option that you can turn on or off.
Yes, absolutely. One thing with the UI, too, we should focus on is last year I remember being like, good God, I've never seen more red in my entire life. This year, it's not red UI anymore. It's kind of like a tan color, and I don't know, maybe that's specific to like class.
Did you tell them that you didn't like that?
Oh, in the feedback?
Yeah.
I don't think so. No, I kind of liked how aggressive the red was last year, but it could be dependent on like, you know, your life history, or I imagine not though. I imagine they just changed it throughout the course of development.
I'm really interested how far those origin stories kind of go into. Because they're like, they're in your interactions and they can open up different dialogue. But I'm curious exactly how much it really does impact and affect your experience. You know?
Yeah, I don't know. This was one of the things that they were talking about in the demo where it was like, we've seen in a ton of RPGs the idea of like, well, hey, do you want to lie to this person? You need a bluff score of 18 or higher or something. And there are things that are like that in this game, except there are more of them, is what it seems like. So rather than you just needing to hit a certain like ability score threshold, it seems like it surfaces the things you've done in more ways. So you get like, it seems like the goal, and I'm putting words in their mouth, I don't know if this is true, but it seems like the goal is to make the player's actions like come up more often and be more apparent in dialogue when it's like, oh, here's the thing I get because I'm a good hacker. Yeah, okay. Here's the thing I get because this is the background thing I chose. Here's an option I get because my cool score is 4 or higher.
Cool score.
There's a cool score.
Wait, you're not joking?
No.
That is one of your core ability scores. It's like your body, your reflexes, your technical
style
ability.
is very important in this game, as it should be in a
How fast can I
Cyberpunk
max
game.
that score out?
I mean, it seems like it's charisma, essentially.
Like it's sunglasses and like...
But it's just a cooler word for it.
And as we know, let's see, the female had a cool score of 14, whereas the male only had a cool score of 9.
Ouch.
So you can really tell from the vibe overall they were putting off.
His origin story is being put into lockers in high school.
Yes, exactly. Okay, let's keep walking through this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So at the middle of the game, picking up, we're in Pacifica. You have a biochip, is what they set up ahead of time. This biochip in your head that's been installed, and that allows you to see Ghost Keanu Reeves in this world, whose name in the game is Johnny Silverhand.
Yes, he's from the Cyber 2020 world that.
This character is.
Yeah, Mike Pondsmith created.
Interesting.
So they said, they said that they really dug into that and wanted to make sure they did it justice, and they brought the character in, which I found out today in my interview with them, just all about that. So.
And he has a robotic arm, Silverhand.
Oh, of course, that makes more sense, right? And so he is a digital ghost that is haunting you in your head. But it seems like little Cortana-ish kind of on your side. He's popping up throughout the entire demo, and it's like, I'm trying to get
He pops up in the entire game. I asked them this question, how long is this freaking ghost with you? And my real question is, how much is Keanu in this game? Because it mattered to me. But they said it's a really big role. It's pretty much like the entire game that he's with you.
So he's going to be like the Great Gazoo.
He's
Cyberpunk
he's the biggest side character they had. And I asked them about other side characters, and obviously there is relationship building. Between people you meet, you can help them out. You'll have characters, obviously, like very Dragon Age style, who are on opposite sides of an issue, and you have to take a side kind of thing with that, and can impact where your relationships go. That was exciting for me to hear because I like that stuff.
You like relationships. Okay, so in this specific area, you start out kind of in this church, and there's a sea of people. You don't start out there, but one of the first things you do is you're going into this church, and you're kind of like pushing your way through a boatload of people. In our demo, it's like, it's kind of running a little bit rough. I don't know about this. And the audio is a little bit weird. Turns out they had 2 versions of the game running, like 2 exe files at the same time, so they had to go and be like, we'll fix this real quick. So proof that it was a live demo, which was very nice that they closed out of one. Then it ran much, much better.
Yeah, it was running fine.
Yeah, we didn't have that.
Okay, good. Pacifica, we got the whole rundown of what exactly is going on there. So you eventually are going to be working your way to the Grand Imperial Mall, where a gang called the Animals have taken over, right?
Yeah, and you're doing this essentially. There's a guy who wants you to go do a job for him that you're going to do because you need to talk to a woman this guy knows about that chip in your head.
Right.
Yeah, because you're trying to find out more about it.
So that's why you're doing it.
Is this Johnny Mnemonic?
Basically.
Okay.
That's why they hired Keanu.
I haven't seen Johnny Mnemonic.
I mean, it straight up got the little laser whip thing.
Yeah, it does.
Is that from that movie?
Yeah, the laser. That's from there. I mean, there are a few cyberpunk nods in there because I mean, like the motorcycle that you drive, and this is I mean, this could be a reference to any number of other things, but it's called like the Yaiba Kusanagi.
Yeah.
And Kusanagi is the major in Ghost in the Shell, right?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
So that's another possible tie in there. There's a part later on.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
It's gonna take 1,000 hours to get through.
It's gonna take so long. We can't go beat
You're
by
right.
beat.
We can't go beat by
man.
beat.
There's a part later where they reveal that like cyberspace is part of the game, which is a huge part of like neuromancy.
And the reason you're kind of like chosen, right, is like you're being put in the role to figure out, can you go beyond the wall and return?
Yeah.
This impenetrable wall, the black wall they might have called it.
Yeah.
Within cyberspace, right?
And and you're meeting up. You're trying to like interact with an entity that has gone beyond the wall.
Right. Alt Cunningham, who's a legendary netrunner. She's the most famous netrunner because she's the first to upload her consciousness to digital space.
But that happened like 50 years ago, and no one quite knows what happened to her.
Right. And also, I was unclear. I feel like I want to watch the demo again because it seemed like the Keanu Reeves character is also interested in Alt Cunningham. Like, he mentions Alt early on, but I don't remember what the context was for him.
It seems like they'd be of the same era. I mean, like, if he's from 2020...
Right.
And this happened to her 50 years ago.
Yeah.
There's got to be some connection there, too.
Yeah. Let's see. Things that stood out. This stood out to me.
Yeah.
I know you're like, I don't know if it's confirmed, but when you're on the motorcycle, it certainly looked like it was manual shifting in first person while on that motorcycle. They also shifted to third person, but just while you're on the motorcycle for a little bit. Did you notice that too, Kim? That it looked like a manual transmission on that motorcycle?
I wasn't sure what was going on with that. I'm very curious how I want to get my hands on this game because it's like I want to see how it controls, and so just watching it's so hard to figure out actually like what is going on.
But like we've seen games before where you're just steering with the analog stick and all the animation makes it look like the character is shifting.
That's my
but the fact that there's UI and it was inconsistent for when the person playing was actually doing the shifting, like I really think
it's a big deal that you could swap to third person for that too. Like people were freaking out when they
just in the vehicle.
Just in the vehicle.
Just to be clear.
But
also the blades we keep talking about, or the wires, they're called nano wires. That was, I mean, it's the coolest weapon I've seen at E3 so far.
Yeah.
Because not only
go online and search Johnny Mnemonic laser whip.
Certainly they did.
Yeah.
But not only can you use it to like whip people and whatnot, but you're also using it for hacking, right? And up close, but then also like from a distance, for like jacking into people. Like at some point in the demo, you jack into somebody because you're the Netrunner character. You jack into somebody and then just apparently fry their brain to the point that they put a bullet in their mouth.
It's like the idea is you're uploading malware.
Yeah, you can.
I hate that. It's terrible.
You have been selected. Bing, bing, bing.
Also, the hacking is probably some of the most fun stuff in the demo. At some point, as you're working your way through this mall, which felt a lot like in Judge Dredd, or like Dredd, I should say, the latest one, like that environment where it's kind of like that open lobby in the middle. A lot of the demo felt like that. But you're working your way through this gym, and there's a robot boxer fighting a human boxer, and it's very Twilight Zone. But then at some point, like the robot punches the human, and blood like spurts from his head, and everyone's like, "Oh!" and the crowd reacting as this robot just kills him.
Yeah,
You hacked the. I mean, I almost wrote a story today that was just like the 5 coolest deaths in the Cyberpunk demo.
Yeah.
Because like there's a guy who you like disable the inhibitor on this boxing training robot, and it just punches a guy's face.
That's what I love. There's just so much you can do in any situation.
There's a guy who's like, "Oh, I better go work out," and he gets down on like the bench press and you just like hack bench press and just like smashes down on his neck.
Good.
The idea that in the world of Cyberpunk 2077 you can hack a bench press. Who's building a bench press? Like, we can improve this if we put a computer chip in here.
You act like this is impossible. The refrigerators that are like connected these days, right?
Wait, no. Refrigerator, no! It just comes
refrigerator, please show me how much milk I have. Okay, great.
Well, I'm sure you can kill somebody with a fridge in this game too. Did other things stand out to you guys that we haven't covered yet?
Oh boy.
I mean, enemies with weak points are that one lady that you can take on harder characters. It's not recommended because it's super difficult, but if you've built like a brute character, you might be able to get. And so in the demo we saw this woman had like a purple area on her back, and if you targeted that and broke it, then she wasn't as strong anymore.
And she was like one of the leaders like of the Animals gang.
Yeah,
she
exactly.
The Animals is the gang that inhabits the mall that you're fighting, and they're all like specialized in melee combat and they're called Animals because they all like take this weird juice that gives them superpowers.
So if there's like specific people or groups that are specialized in stuff, can you like respec to like fight them specifically?
That's a good question. Kim, do you know anything about that?
Not to fight them specifically.
Like if I wanted to just like I want to put my skill points somewhere else for this next area.
It seems like the idea is more about building a sort of, I don't know, like building sort of like ecology in the world. Am I using that right? Maybe not. But like building a world that responds to the choices that you've made rather than a world that you need to make your choices.
Okay.
You will. There is an option to respec, but if you just decide halfway through the game like you wanted to, you're like, I'm tired of guns, I want a freaking katana.
Yeah.
But that one thing that was interesting that they told me though, so while you get all your skill points back, your weapons that you had, so your guns will be like leveled higher, but your katana now starts back at 1, which you have to level up. So if you do, there's a consequence to doing that. It's not. I'm sure it levels up fast because you're probably.
I figured if you're a robot person, you can like just do whatever you want with your skill points. But
it seems like it doesn't seem like the idea is like, oh, I'm gonna fight these guys, so I just need to rebuild my character to be a the mortal enemy of
I think it's more
you're
not building your character for the situations, you're building it for how you want to play, because there is so many different options at your disposal every time you enter an encounter.
And part of the goal of the demo is showing how they can construct missions that respond to those different builds, I guess.
Right.
The one other thing I wanted to talk about that I thought was cool, I mentioned the perk tree before that they brought up, in that it reminded me a little bit. Ben, you remember when we saw the Outer Wilds? Yeah. And there was...
Worlds.
Dang it. Worlds. The Outer Worlds.
Can I say I got an Annapurna person, and I was like, you guys need to change this name, or somebody does.
After Outer Wilds is released, you got to go back and change that name.
It was like, I think it was like a couple of months before, and it was like, we got there first. They need to change it.
Yeah. I still love the joke. Not many people responded to it in the comment section, but I still love the joke in our rapid fire. I think it was a Leo or Cork joke, which was, do you ever get home after a long day at work and realize you've been accidentally working on Outer Wilds all day? I think that's a lovely joke.
But the skill system reminds me of that a little bit, where there are sort of those main core ability scores, right? Like technical ability, like reflexes, and those are sort of umbrella. It seemed like those are sort of umbrella skills that impact very particular other kinds of weapon skills. So like if your reflexes are good, that goes that carries over to like, oh, you then are good with sniper rifles. You're then good with a katana. Versus, you know, if your like body or your strength is really high, then it's like other like shotguns maybe or something. You know, it's like each different weapon types and things sort of fall under the purview of different main scores.
I didn't think about this until you mentioned, or like use this like kind of a strain comparison, but do you think that this is kind of like an evolution of the Fallout formula a little bit? Because like the way you guys are describing it, from like the interpretation I'm getting, is that it kind of sounds like you can play any way you want and the world will react to it.
I guess I did not get any Fallout vibes when I was watching it, so it's hard now to, as you're saying that, I guess I can see.
I guess maybe less Fallout, more New Vegas is specifically what I'm honing in on.
Yeah. I guess I don't know that I would say like, oh yeah, it's definitely like definitely doing that, but I wouldn't say it's not doing that either. You know, like it seems clear that Cyberpunk is sort of like Cyberpunk 2077 is drawing from a lot of different sources.
Yes.
I mean, it feels very much like a unique, interesting thing on its own.
Yeah.
But even from all the other nods to like Cyberpunk stuff that we've talked about, like it's clearly it's not shy about the fact that it's pulling inspiration from places.
Exactly.
I got like Dishonored vibes.
Yes, I did too.
From as we were watching today's demo, definitely. So it's like a little bit of Fallout, a little bit of Dishonored.
Some of the best games of all time are just like, I pulled from this and made it better.
Yeah, so. I think it does the game a disservice to link it too closely to any one thing and say like, oh yeah, it's like a better version of that.
I see shades of a bunch of different games, and
that's actually the most exciting thing I've heard. Of like, just it's everything.
Well, what about this for the most exciting thing you've heard though? What if I told you it had a live action Western in it?
Like a Remedy style, just like a TV with a thing?
Well, you go into a movie theater in this abandoned mall, and then when you're up in the projector's booth, there's like that's a big choice moment in the demo, right? And then in the background, you can just watch this Western.
I wondered how long that is.
I know, because I was like, I think this is animated. It's like, oh no, that's a live action face. They shot some Western for Cyberpunk 2077, which is so fun.
As I said, there's so much detail, I feel like, in the world. That's why I want to see more of it, you know, because everything I see is very interesting and impressive, but
yes, I mean, I feel like we've buried the lead a little bit. Like for me, I know it's like the first appointment of the day, but I saw that and I was like, okay, forget Watch Dogs Legion. Like in my mind, this is like
I saw it and I was like, that was freaking awesome.
Those games come out a month apart.
We'll see.
It gave me energy throughout after I saw it this show, because I was just like so excited about it. Yeah.
Okay, we got to move on. Final Fantasy VII. Joe, can I see your hands? They've played the Final Fantasy VII remake.
Hey, why are you being creepy with Imran? He played it too.
I like your hands, Joe.
Okay,
you know what we talked about yesterday, right?
Yes.
About just production values off the charts. Good God, they're never going to finish this. Playing it, how did it feel? Give us impressions here.
It felt amazing. Like honestly, I came away from that so happy as someone who's kind of been cynical about that remake for the last couple of years. I came away from that feeling this is like they realized every problem that went wrong with Kingdom Hearts 3 or that could go wrong with the Final Fantasy VII remake.
Yeah.
And they solved it. They did everything perfectly.
It feels.
We're gonna see it tomorrow.
I know. I'm very excited to see this. Yes. Okay.
It feels so much better than I thought it would, and that's that's even a relative thing. It controls really well.
I think
like it controls like a good action RPG.
Not like Kingdom Hearts 3.
It doesn't have that weird floatiness.
Yes.
It doesn't have that weird floatiness to it. It doesn't have the the kind of erratic camera that a lot of like Japanese third-person action RPGs can have sometimes.
So what did you play then?
We played the part that they had on stage yesterday of the guard scorpion boss fight.
Okay.
Which, when you're playing it, I know it felt like excruciatingly long in that demo.
I would say delightfully long, but yeah.
Yeah. It does. It still feels a little long, but like when you're playing it, it doesn't feel that long. It doesn't feel like here I am just dragging on and like chipping away a little bit of health. Like
I disagree with Joe a little bit there. I do think it does feel a little bit long.
It feels a little long. It doesn't feel
it should
as
feel
long as it does when you're watching.
Battle, though.
But
It shouldn't be.
I do think that I didn't get the systems quite yet because there's specifically a staggered system.
Yes.
You have to knock them off, like expose their weak points, and then at some point you can do like 160% damage or whatever.
Yeah.
And like I wasn't doing that probably as often as I should because like I forgot honestly that Barret had thunder. And like
yeah. And it's also not totally clear which attacks you're doing contribute the most to a stagger.
Yeah,
Is it just using weaknesses? Because there are times when Barret just sitting there like plugging away at it with a normal attack was like building up the gauge pretty well. So.
And you have to switch around. That was one thing I was surprised about.
That's what I was going to ask actually, like how much do you really need to switch around?
So like theoretically you could just play as Cloud and like you could plink away at the guard scorpion forever, but if you like you need to switch to Barret so he'll like do sustained fire and actually build up his. I don't think they build up fast if you don't like you're not actively playing as them.
It seems like
it builds up somewhat, but not like at a decent speed. So like you need to get there if you need to get him to use Cure or Thunder or any of those things.
Yeah.
What did you learn about the scope of the game? Because yesterday it seems that the conclusion we had, which I love, is just production values are off the charts, but in a way is that a bad thing? Because this game, we're never going to see the end of it. Like I am to the point now, I will be surprised if we see the final Sephiroth fight in that game on the next generation of hardware.
We asked Katase, he was the one doing the presentation, how many games is this? We don't know. How long is it going to take? It's not going to be any shorter.
Which, Joe, you brought up when we asked them back in 2016, they said about the number of games.
Right. So back when I should preface this by saying when we did this feature, like CyberConnect 2 was still like
it was very early.
Like who knows what phase of like how far along that was?
Well, I don't think they were far at all.
But essentially, what we asked the question back then, like, look, how many games is this?
Wait, we prefaced everything with a look. Yeah.
Look. I'm a very aggressive interview, as everyone knows.
Straight to the truth.
But the answer that we got at the time was essentially, well, it's coming along. We know how many games it is now, but we're just not ready to say it. Which rubs against the answer that we got today, which was like, we knew that Midgar, we knew that we could do a lot of interesting stuff in Midgar, that it as a location is sort of the most representative and iconic place in Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
So that's what we focused on, and he's basically said only now are they like planning and scoping out the content of the next one.
Yes.
That's frightening.
It feels like they just don't have a plan, and that's really weird.
They gotta get something out the door.
Yeah.
You have to think of this the way like I thought about it since is this is a new series. This is their parallel Final Fantasy line. That they are.
So just give me the game. I don't want to be stuck in this loop for 10 more years.
There's still so many questions about that too, because like Joe and I were talking about it earlier. That let's say Juno is the next game, or the game goes up to Juno, and the next game goes to Costa del Sol, and like all that stuff.
Right.
Obviously, they'll end up being on the PS5 and the PS6.
We decided to make Costa del Sol its entire own game.
60 hours.
We could not get over these people selling lemonade or whatever happens to that stupid
Do you start over save files every time? Like, is someone just going to pick up, like, Final Fantasy VII Golden Saucer Edition and, like, just done the story up until then? Like,
and then the problem, too, is then you feel cheated if you spend 60 hours really leveling up your characters in the first installment, and the next one is like, look, everyone's level 1. look.
Yeah, look. On the production front, I had a weird moment with Cyril Vasquez where he asked me some questions that I thought were inappropriate. No, Cyril Vasquez and I were doing an interview for Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, and it was with the director of Dragon Ball Z who works at Cyberpunk 2, obviously. So I asked him, I was like, hey, is this your first project directing? Because I'm trying to get a sense of some dev history. And he's like, yes, this is my first project directing here with Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. And I was like, did you work on the Final Fantasy VII remake by chance? And he's like, I cannot answer that question. And instead I just asked him, what did you think about the showing of the remake so far? And it was a very diplomatic answer, but it's definitely a lot of okay, I'll say this. And he's like, I understand that there are very high expectations, and I'm very excited to see what will be packaged in that game. Was his exact phrase.
That feels pointed.
Cyril, did you take it as pointed or just general pleasantries from a Japanese developer?
There was a little bit of pointedness.
Cyril says there is a pointedness the size of Masamune. He says.
Did you guys get to see Masamune? Summons? People want to know.
Oh, Ben Reeves is asking if we got to see summons.
We didn't get to see any summons in action. They revealed that they're in there because there's certain pre-order bonuses and stuff.
Yeah.
What they did say that was good was revealing that the materia system is back, but that it isn't necessarily it won't be unrecognizable. I think they said, look, we're not going into detail. We're not going into details. Now I'm catching myself doing that all the time. They're not going into details on exactly how the materia system works, but it will be similar. It will be familiar to fans of the original in the sense that you are finding materia, you're leveling it up, you're equipping it. That gives you different abilities.
I love to, and people were speculating on it before the show, but now the last trailer confirmed it, right? That you can see materia in the actual weapon itself.
Yes.
Which now I'm realizing now. Just thinking what's it going to look like in the nail bat? There's just wads of material wedged in that dumb thing.
That's a weird question though too, because
Tifa?
Because I noticed it on Cloud's Buster Sword.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I did not look closely, but it's certainly not as conspicuous if it's even there on Barrett's.
Well, actually, the weird part is, I saw this behind closed doors demo where Barrett takes his sunglasses off and he just has two materia follows for their eyes. Which is a bold choice.
There was a really good exchange. I think Jason Schreier tweeted it out. But it was Barrett is in the elevator. He's doing this big performative, how can you not hear the planet dying, Cloud? It's screaming out. Cloud's you can hear that? And it's yeah, of course I can. And there's just a pause. And Cloud goes, get help.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I love that because so this is one of those things that's weird about it being a remake, is that knowing that it sounds like Barrett's just a crazy person, a crazy environmentalist, but then you play the game and he has different reasons for this, that he's is being performative, that he doesn't actually care that much about the environment, he cares about Shinra.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm interested to see if they take it that way, if he's acting with that in mind, because it's going to be 4 games from now. Then we get to Corel and find out more about it.
Also, just remember what the planet sounded like in that game when it's crying for help. It's
a whale song.
Throw a crappy sound design on the PS1. I just love it. We need to cycle through and get some Nintendo voices in here. Kim, do you have a closing message for the Game Informer community?
Oh, hey, what's up? Yeah. We're enjoying the show, and I'm excited at what I'm going to see. Obviously, you and me are going to play that Final Fantasy remake tomorrow.
Yes, I can't wait. We're going to talk about it probably a lot more. You hosted a panel today, is that right?
Yeah.
For Telling Lies?
Yes.
What is that?
It is the new Sam Barlow game who created Her Story, and basically he wanted to do a political thriller about, us with technology, so you're watching all these webcam videos and Skype sessions, whatever, and trying to infer how these 4 characters are connected, and also why a government agency would be that it would be investigating them, basically. So you can't even know the characters' names because it's a spoiler. So it's just really under wraps the story.
That's interesting.
But I love the concepts he's going for.
And the panel's online?
Yeah, I think E3 Coliseum.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Also, Sam Barlow, creative director, you might want to tune into the Game Informer show on Thursday.
Ooh.
I think that might be coming together.
People are asking if we're going to have Clint Hawking on the show.
Are we going to have Clint Hawking on the show? Get ready for this. Clint, come on out. No, we're not going to have Clint Hawking. on the show. I'm very, very sorry.
Waiting for someone to ask. You've been awkwardly in the doorway.
Tapping his wrist, which we should really be doing right now. Okay, so you two, I'm going to lower your mics. You want to take your mics off? We'll put them on them. Imran, you're in this for the long haul, baby.
Oh, really?
Ain't no getting off of this train we're on. So, Joe, would you mind also running down to the lobby and finding our 3 mystery developer guests? 2 of them for sure are in this building, and there's another one that might be roaming the halls somewhere as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's fine.
The door. Tell you what, here, just take my key. Take my key, please. And don't stand too much in front of the camera. That was a great butt shot. All right, wonderful, Joe. All right, Ciro Vasquez is also coming out here. Please, we're here to talk a little bit about Nintendo. Imran, I'm going to tweak your mic and bring it up.
Tweak me.
Oh no, it's almost like someone butt bombed it.
Who's sitting here, Joe?
Yeah, well, somebody. Imran, will you?
What kind of monster is
Will
this
you
person?
fill the podcast void?
All right, yeah, quick.
I will fill the podcast void by saying, fun fact.
What's the plot of Rocky 3?
What's the plot?
I don't know the plot of Rocky 3. I've seen the first movie.
Has anyone here seen Rocky 3?
No,
Yes.
Clubber Lang is in that one. Okay,
one with,
Nintendo. Here we go. We got to dive in. We don't have much time here, everybody. Most exciting thing at Nintendo's Nintendo Direct this morning was
Banjo-Kazooie.
It was the new Zelda.
Okay,
Banjo-Kazooie.
let's start with Banjo-Kazooie.
Sure.
Here's the thing, I'm surprised they're this close for me.
Yeah.
I don't even like Banjo-Kazooie.
I don't really like Banjo-Kazooie either, but that trailer was so
It's just all the rare character just having fun together.
Yes, and beyond that, they do the best psych out, right? Where it's like, okay, there's a silhouette outside. What's it going to be? Oh, it turns out it's Duck Hunt. And then a million Duck Hunts pop up laughing, and then bam, Banjo-Kazooie. Microsoft has made sweet love to Nintendo.
Banjo.
And it happened. It looks super fun. Did anything in the moveset excite you? Because the reveal's exciting, then I saw him in action, I'm like, I don't know.
Even though it's to me, it's like it's the simplest possible reference you can make. But the fact that his run is him turning around and running as Kazooie,
Oh,
like
right.
that's such a it again, it's an obvious detail, but it's like, oh right, that's super good.
The way you said
character
that,
is
like, it just made me realize, do I even care how characters play in DLC? I just want to know the reveal.
Right. But also the Dragon Quest character reveal,
Yes.
Hero, I thought was super fun, where it came on and it's like, it's the hero. And I was like, well, it's Dragon Quest XI's protagonist. Like, call him the Luminary or
Yes.
something. But, oh no, alternate costumes
yes.
going through it, so you can choose from all these different Dragon Quest protagonists. Kim, I saw you smiling off camera. I'm sorry.
That's
so
super
much
old
fun.
school, like NES, like costume.
commands. They had like interface commands on
The
it.
one-
Yes.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
looks
that's
so wild. Yeah.
I want to try that because I have no idea how it works.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just like you have the same. It's like the same archetype of attack, but it's different spells depending on the. It's called a different thing depending on the.
I
hero
wonder
you
if it's
choose.
just like their normal attacks, normal specials. It shows you the command list doing it.
Oh.
I wonder if that's the case.
I
who
also
knows?
wonder if it's like a thing like Ryu, the way if you use the actual like Hadouken command, it's stronger. I wonder if it's you can do the move, or if you somehow do it through the menu, it's stronger. Or
So it's like a turn-based fighting game character.
yeah,
That would be cool, actually.
Right, that would be interesting. Kim's on board, she says. Okay, most exciting thing, you say, Reeves.
Well, the Zelda thing.
Yes.
What is the
the
Zelda
new
thing?
announcement? So they teased that the sequel to Breath of the Wild is what they called it.
Yes.
is in development.
Is in development, which
Which-
isn't surprising to me. But the fact that they were like, it
Showing
felt like
it.
they were showing it.
Because
They
we talked
showed
about it on the
something new.
podcast that last week, and it was like, they have Link's Awakening to focus on, but of course Nintendo always zigs when you think they're going to zag,
Right.
and not only are they hyping you for Link's Awakening this year, which I think looks absolutely fantastic,
Yeah, yeah.
like, you
Looks
guys should
great.
play it, but then also the idea that we're going to show you the teaser for,
I have a
let's call
feeling-
it Breath of the Wild 2, or, I don't know, Breath of the Majora's Mask.
It was like
whatever you
30 seconds or something, so it wasn't long. But like just that one shot of like him on an elephant or whatever it was,
And the castle
it looked really
taking off.
cool. Yeah, I loved it.
call it. What do
and-
you make of that? What do you think they're doing with the world?
I think my theory is that basically this is like the dark side of that world, and I think rather than make an entire new landmass, they're gonna say I wouldn't be surprised if it was a thing where it's like, hey, you know that part of Breath of the Wild that is, you know, let's say, you know, the Goron area, right?
Yeah.
Death Mountain, right? Instead, like as a way to travel from place to place, you're going to Death Mountain, but you're accessing a new route that is basically the underground. I think the fact that they're walking underneath the landmass is going to be basically there's this underside of the entire world that you're traveling through, and the way that early on, at least, the way you're going from place to place is saying, hey, you remember that thing from Breath of the Wild? That's where you need to go next to start your next the next part of your journey.
So
that's
that'll
actually-
lift up and flip.
The volcano will lift up and
Right.
flip.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
The weird maze thing will lift up and flip. Everything under the
It's
sun.
a huge funnel now.
That
Well,
reminds me
I'm
of,
not
like,
even saying it's going to be like huge dark Death Valley. I'm just saying like
Right.
the way you navigate it is by refamiliarizing yourself with Breath of the Wild's landmass and using it to traverse these like tunnels or something.
Okay, this is like a low bar for Nintendo, I understand that, but would anybody be upset if it's just Breath of the Wild's world, new story, quote unquote, new goal, and then bam, things are remixed, we added some dungeons on the overworld, there's some underground areas, good.
I would
No,
not
I'm
be
fine.
upset. I'm down with that. Like, when Majora's Mask was being made, the smartest thing they did with that game was that they reused everything from Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
And they, like, did it in a way that... Because you're familiar with those things, but you see them in different contexts, and that makes them weird.
Well, that world is so big. Like, I remember going back for the DLC, and I kept encountering things that I hadn't seen before, so I'm sure if I go back to that world, I'll still run into things.
There's just going to be a lot
This
of
was
like,
in the
wait,
game,
was
like-
this in Breath of the Wild or is
it'll
this
feel
new?
new.
Yeah.
I'm sure I haven't seen, like, 40% of that game, honestly, and I'm
Right.
fine with that, but I want to play a new one. That looks very interesting. That looks very dark for Zelda.
Like the main what I'm guessing is the main bad guy looked very like he still looked like in that mold of like the Calamity Ganon, but he looked like it may not be Ganon. It looked like it could
It
be
looked
someone.
very
Effed up reincarnated version of
Yeah.
Ganon.
It looked Twilight Princessy on like just the aesthetic of that like one section.
Right.
Does anyone else think Zelda will be playable?
I think that'd be super cool.
She had a sword and she had armor.
Did she really?
Yes.
That would be a good pitch for changing
What if
things up.
she was the main character this time around?
I would dig that.
What if it was
Yeah.
co-op?
People would dig it, but I don't think Nintendo's going to do that.
I don't think they would.
I think
I could see the choice happening.
yes. I get to, or like Link gets captured and like for parts of it you play as Zelda.
Or for stealth sequences.
That sounds great.
Everyone loves those.
The other Zelda game we should talk about, Link's Awakening, they showed more. Reeves, you actually got to play it.
I
Yeah.
did too.
It's Link's Awakening. Still looks so good, and like seeing every new character design, I love that art style so much. Like,
It's
you
the
see
cutest game I've ever
You
seen.
see the Great Fairy. You see, like Marin. Every character
the
you
crocodile
see.
that lives in that one hut. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, this is that
Yeah.
guy, and they do a fantastic job of capturing the look of Link's Awakening, in that you immediately recognize everything. But it's like, oh, this is how I sort of imagined it in my head, even though it was like, Game Boy graphics. This is how my mind extrapolated that character into something real.
Did you
they
see
said
that?
they-
Oh, go ahead.
Well, they said they were going to include a lot of the old like Nintendo references.
Yep.
I didn't see them, but they kind of said like.
I mean, the
Mario
chain chomp
and-
was there.
Well, yeah, actually, and I did see Yoshi at one point. So
That Kirby is going to be weird in 3D.
It's gonna look so messed up. I
think-
can't wait.
I was a little. I liked the art style overall, but I wasn't crazy about it until. This is like a weird marketing thing, but like they had dioramas of a bunch of areas from Link's Awakening in their booth,
I tweeted
and I
about
realized
it.
like,
They're
man, this is so they're basic like it's identical. Like the fact that they are able to build these awesome dioramas out of this art style, it drove home the point of what they were trying to do with that art style, and that was the thing that's like, okay, this is actually an amazing art
Oh, the
style.
game's all physical. It's just a video feed.
Yeah, that was the
The
coolest
Stadia
part.
feed,
Yeah.
yeah.
And there was also just noticing like some of the minor differences. Like when I was playing it, it felt different, and I realized it was because he has an animation for walking diagonally. And I was like,
Oh, of
wait, can he
course.
move in 8 directions now? But you could do that in Link's Awakening, but it was just his side-scrolling animation, but sliding diagonally.
Right,
So now
right.
he actually and when you slash that way, it looks like he's slashing diagonally. So it's actually just all an aesthetic change that made it feel different.
Did you look at the map?
Yeah,
The
it's
map looks really cool too.
You can
It's
set
like,
markers like Breath of the Wild now,
Yeah.
which is very
Right.
exciting.
and just like the aesthetic, it's like an old timey like map with like it looks like physical paper.
And you can see
not
kind of like
paper.
loose hints of what's in each region, but then
Right.
you get more detail as you uncover it as you go
it's
along.
it's like the closest thing to paper Link, basically. Paper
Of
Zelda,
course,
basically.
yes, that's a great point.
Reeves, did you steal anything from the store?
anything from this. No, I heard you couldn't. That
Really?
they had
So
changed
they
that.
said it seems like the build is fluctuating, and then they said that all the demos they had done, no one was able to steal from the store. So maybe they changed how you're able to steal.
Because in the
but
trailer,
the
they
guy
showed him like
killed-
picking something up and just like kind of walking past the thing and
Right.
like then cut it off. I'm like, you know what
Yeah,
you want to
Well,
see.
the shop owner, he can kill you in the game.
Yeah.
But whether or not you
Also-
can get away from is the question.
Also, it's an Amazon store now, so you just walk in, you take
that's
the
a
item,
great
and you
point.
leave.
Amazon Go, but
The
you
one thing
send that.
I did double check too is like if they're adding anything new to the game. It sounds like they're being pretty faithful to what was in the original game. There's certain like mechanical elements that are
Well,
changing.
there's one big
Well,
thing, though.
yeah, right. I think they're isolating the newness, right? They're not adding like, hey, here's just all these other like maybe differences around the world, but it's like here's one big new feature for everyone to freak out about, and you don't have to worry about like, oh, they're ruining the game because they changed this thing, right? They're just adding a thing.
I'm just
And
saying,
the thing
content-wise, they're not adding new dungeons, is what I'm saying.
They're letting
Right.
you basically make dungeons.
Right, yeah.
They're making basically Zelda Maker within Link's Awakening.
I'm kind
just
of
for
curious if
designing
like
dungeons.
that's a test balloon for an actual Zelda Maker.
I don't know. I think they probably realize that a Zelda Maker is not going to work as well as the internet thinks
It would
it
be
will, and
too
this is like their
complex.
soft,
Yeah.
you know,
I think the
version of that.
dungeon part is the thing that you could make and make interesting, and the rest of the Zelda
Yeah.
game would be hard to make.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
not interesting.
Yeah. We had an interview, Brian Shade and I, with Tezuka, the original director for Link's Awakening. We managed to do, because of the grace of God and Nintendo PR, we were allowed to do a rapid fire interview, which is kind of a quick and dirty one with Tezuka. So that should be going on live on the site probably next week.
What was your favorite question?
That's a great.
I can't talk about that right now.
Yeah, it's kind of top secret.
We'll get into
I
that
think there's an
later.
interesting beat actually because like I think just explaining who Tezuka is I think is important. So there's a whole stretch where it's like, so you're the guy that directed the original Legend of Zelda? He's like, yeah, and you directed Link to the Past. Yeah. It's like you directed Mario 3. Yeah. You directed Mario World. Yeah. You directed Yoshi's Island. Yeah. So the joke was like, Miyamoto, who, right? But when I was running through that list, he was like, yes, 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 yes. And then Link to the Past, he's like, well, I took over the direction role about halfway through that project. I was like, oh, I didn't know that before. And then later on, off camera, it was brought up again. Like Ryan Shea, I think, asked him about like, you know, what was it like when you came on halfway through the project? Why they're shifting directors halfway through the project? And he's like, that's something I cannot talk about. I was like, is there some weird development drama for Link to the Past that no one's ever talked about before? But he was very nice. We talked to him about like the Nintendo Easter egg characters and stuff in Link's Awakening and like how he did it without getting approvals. And he's like, well, the person that would have given the approval was me back in the day, and I said it was fine. So we just went ahead and threw these characters in there and stuff. So there should be a lot of fun stuff coming from Brian Shea, and we'll post the video sometime soon. Other Nintendo stuff we should hit?
I really like the
real
Mana.
quick. Oh, go. What was it?
The Mana collection
Yes,
stuff.
that's what Kim was screaming about as well. Wait, the Mana collection?
Mana collection and the remake. I'll post a story probably sometime today or tomorrow. But like we got to see that game earlier and like interview the producer and the director. Seiken Densetsu 3, like that game never came west. But I played a fan translation about 20 years ago. I love that game. It is one of my favorite JRPGs of all time.
But do you think you're rooting for it as the hipster underdog of like, I went through the problem and the whole hassle of actually playing this translated version, so I'm really going to defend
The second
crap out
we're
of this.
done, I'm gonna go download it on my Switch.
Okay,
Really?
all right.
All right.
I really, really love that. Like maybe it is because I was like 14 or whatever when I played that game.
Yeah, everyone's dumb.
Yeah, but like there's so many cool things. Like you choose a main character out of 6 characters, then you choose like 2 compatriots, and also out of those 6 characters. So the story changes depending on who you chose. Like the origin story and the villain is different, and like you go through their side quests and solve their things too.
Yeah.
Imagine like a Mass Effect where you can create your party based on who you like choose the beginning, and like it's kind of like that game. And it was so ahead of its time. I don't know how it feels today.
Yeah.
Like, but at the time, I was so mad it never came to America.
Yeah. That was exciting. Yeah, Kim, were you excited off camera here?
Yeah,
She says yes.
I felt confident because the questions that I had, that I asked them that were problems with earlier games and even in the recent Secret of Mana remake, like the AI, they have completely rehauled and
She
redid.
says they're fixing the AI for
It's a
people.
big- it's a big
I think
fucking
everybody
It's a
heard
big
that.
deal.
It's a
It's a
big,
big deal.
big effing deal.
Yes,
but she didn't
it's
say
very
effing.
exciting.
It seems like they took a lot of feedback from
They
the
took a
last
lot
of
Mana
feedback.
remake.
Also, that game looks good. Unlike
Yeah.
Secret of Mana remake,
That
it
is
looks
True.
nice.
Yes, it does look a hell of a lot better for sure. A lot of people were saying Nintendo killed it.
Yeah.
Best press conference. It was better than I expected.
It was really good, I thought.
Reeves
I
as-
thought Luigi's Mansion was really cool. I played
Yeah, that
for a
seems
little bit.
great. I think
And
people
for
kind of know
Luigi's
what to
Mansion's
expect.
fans, totally, you should be excited.
2
It looks
was
fun.
too long, so I'm hoping they kind of get this game.
Well, this is back to just one hotel. It's
Yeah.
not
Right.
multiple mansions.
And I think
like
a
the
hotel
second
setting is brilliant.
Yeah.
And like each level is a different theme, and the theme I played was medieval themes, medieval time kind of thing. It was really cool.
one. Okay.
Reeves, as a Panda Dragon expert, did that look good?
The remake?
Yeah.
It looks like a remake. I thought people online were really excited about it. I thought, I wish visually it looked a little bit more interesting.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to play it because I still think those games play well.
It sounds like it's coming to other consoles as well, so maybe it will look better on
And I
those.
hope it's a stepping stone towards Saga, which is the game I really want.
Yeah.
You played Pokemon? right?
Played Pokemon.
That seems pretty like similar at this point. The section they showed us, I don't know if it's a good showcase of what that game is going to end up being. We didn't get to see the wild area, and it was like they're basically saying like, hey, we're still doing the trials thing from Sun and Moon in a sort of limited fashion where it's like, hey, you have to solve this water puzzle basically before you can face the gym leader.
Well, gyms are back, but they're a little bit more complicated.
Right, they're more They're more in the vein of those trials.
Kind of like the best of both worlds.
Right, and and everything else from that demo is basically what you'd expect. Like, hey, you can make the Pokemon big. You know,
it's pretty simple. Yeah, it's still exciting to see. But I mean, a lot of those Nintendo appointments that we had, people can get a much more informed take from looking at the Treehouse Live. Like they're gonna be running through that stuff throughout the week, which is very exciting. There's so much ground.
Yeah, just like kind of scanning through it today. I was like, oh, there's a Mario Maker announcement that's actually kind of important.
Oh, really?
They're going to announce or they're going to update it for the Friends online play.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. That's a quick turnaround for Nintendo.
I think the backlash was bad for that one.
Yeah.
Did they announce anything that rhymes with Metroid?
No.
Great. Right, congratulations.
Well, I think we're done here.
We're done here. We'll definitely talk more about Nintendo. I want to rave about Animal Crossing in the future, probably on tomorrow's episode of the podcast. But we have some developers in the wings, and we need to get ready with that whole thing. So without further ado, Reeves, do you want to just say goodbye to people and tell them what to expect the rest of E3 coverage?
Goodbye, people. We got a lot of great new features coming up. I just posted my Pokemon thing. Yeah. Posted a thing on Intellivision. Talked to Tommy Tellerico. Yeah. It's great.
I'll have an interview with Suda about No More Heroes 3 where we talk about Rocky 3.
Oh, of course. Very exciting. That's right.
And we're going to be playing Stadia tomorrow, so more on that.
Yeah, the weird future. We'll dive into it. We're going to have developers coming up very soon, so stay tuned to this live stream. We're not going to shut down the stream. It's going to be just a quick intermission, but we'll be back in probably 10 minutes at the most, I'd say. So see you soon, everybody.
Start your clocks.
Start the clocks. Hang on. Mics are still live. Hang on.
I'm out of here.
everybody. Welcome back to the Game Informer Show. We're still here. I don't have Game Informer editors with me anymore. I have an amazing panel of developers. Thank you for making your way to this wonderful apartment in LA. We have Alex Hutchinson. Welcome, sir.
Welcome, thank you.
Oh my gosh, honor to have you. You found the place okay?
Yeah.
Okay overall? Okay.
So far, so good.
Any adventures along the way?
Yeah, no. Just half a drunk beer. That's about where we're at.
Okay, great. That sounds perfect. You're from Typhoon, talking about Journey to the Savage Planet.
Mm-hmm.
We're excited to have you. We're going to dive into all that stuff. We have Josh Holmes talking about Scavengers.
Yep.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
It's been a while. I think the first time we met was the Halo 4 cover story trip.
Yep.
You're the creative director. And I remember we did a video where you talked about working on golf games back in the day.
That's true. I remember that.
Okay. And then there's a lot of geeking out about NBA Street.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Perfect.
We have a lot to dive into today.
Yeah.
And then end of the couch. Who's down there, Alex? I can't quite see.
It's Mr. Romero himself.
Who's
John
that?
Romero, welcome to the Game Informer Show,
Hello,
sir.
welcome.
Oh my God, it's an exciting day for you.
Yeah,
You were on a Nintendo Direct this morning.
that's right. Yeah, it's
What in
pretty
the
great.
world is happening?
Yeah, it was a surprise, isn't it?
Yeah. Was that a
Anyone that
difficult
knew
thing
that
to
we were-
line up?
Well, people knew that we were doing a game with Paradox, and when they didn't see it on the PC Game Show, they're like, "What's going on?"
Right. Wow. Is there any good story for how you ended up on the Nintendo Direct? Any good behind-the-scenes conversations, or is that above your
Nintendo's
pay grade?
huge.
Yeah,
Why
of
wouldn't you want to
course.
go with Nintendo?
Yep.
Yeah. And you announced Empire of Sin.
Yes.
This is a new strategy game.
Strategy game, yeah.
Okay. How would you describe it overall?
It is a strategy RPG kind of.
So looking at the trailer, I think there's now for strategy games, people want to divide things. Is it going to be a little bit like XCOM or a lot like XCOM? Where are you at on the XCOM spectrum?
It's a lot like XCOM.
That's cool. Okay, just because you're a fan of Enemy Unknown?
Yeah.
Okay, but it has a crazy setting, right? It's we're in 1920s Chicago.
Yes, Prohibition era Chicago. So a lot of people already kind of get a lot of that picture automatically. It's not like we're inventing a new universe. We're just taking the one that happened and then just giving it life.
It's what I think of when I think of Nintendo. I think of Prohibition.
Of course.
You know, I think I was like,
That's
it's a
what's
match
really
made perfect.
interesting about it.
And Sin as well. I was like, bang.
That's why it stood out. Right?
No, it's great.
Yeah, excellent. It's fun to have like developers on the podcast at E3, and also you never quite know how people are going to shake out and how things are going to collect together. And then looking at this group, it's like, okay, some former shooter developers. But now Scavengers is still a little bit of a shooter, or how would you exactly?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
but
No,
also a little bit of a twist because it's co-op and competitive at the same time.
It is, yeah. We call it co-opetition, which is like a fake made-up word, but
Co-opetition.
yeah, it's like it's blending together PvE and PvP, PvEVP in a survival shooter. It's trying to like distill down the essence of a survival experience into repeatable, replayable session that you can go over again.
So why leave the good old deathmatch behind? What are you doing, man?
Yeah.
Well, you gotta keep branching out, explore. That's how you're gonna find new things.
Okay.
So.
Last
Royale.
time I think you were on this podcast, we talked about you building up the new studio. What has that process been like? I mean, you're also is your team fully operational at this point in time?
Yeah, we're like, I mean, it's funny going from big teams to smaller teams. I'm sure you had the same experience. We're like 24 people now. You know, we have one room instead of like multiple offices, so it's intimate. And it's the same. I was thinking, hearing you say that about shooters is also really interesting because Savage Planet, we tried very hard. It's an exploration game, so we were calling Explore 'em Up was our made-up word. And we tried very hard not to have a gun in the player's hand, and it was almost inescapable. You know, like the ball. Every time you tried, someone was like, "This is all great," and I know I don't really need to shoot everything, but I'd really like to shoot everything.
Can I shoot something?
Yeah, so like you get it back very much. So there's lots of different ways to solve problems, but yeah, you end up with your sort of your laser gun in your right hand.
Yeah, of course. Hey, John, could I interrupt you for a second? You want to take your mic maybe and just try clipping on the outside of your shirt just to make sure it doesn't.
Oh,
rub
it's
up
falling
against it.
down?
We got it covered. So you're at 24 for Typhoon. How big is Midwinter at this point?
30 people.
Oh, interesting.
Awesome.
Yeah, and now you're also working with Improbable,
We are, yeah.
which I've had Improbable described to me 7,000 times, and I'm still a little bit confused. Can you explain just on the game development level what it means for you?
I'm probably going to do a terrible job. I'm not a technical guy, but I would say, the thing that Improbable does, it kind of solves the problem of the single server for teams of our size, right? So like, yes, you can definitely scale to multiple servers, and people have done that. That's a problem that has been solved in the past, but that takes an army of people developing that tech. And what Improbable does with Spatial is it gives you something as a foundation that as a small team, you can kind of go beyond a single server. And for us, that's really important because we're trying to put all of these active AI populations together with large player count in a session. And so, yeah, it's been great.
And how long of a, or like how large of a player count?
So we're still toying with that right now. We're shooting for 32 players to begin with, but then we're going to be scaling that over time through development. And I think one of the nice things about the foundation of the tech that we're working with is it is scalable in that sense. So like, once we're there, we can, it's not quite a volume knob, and my tech director would like hit me for saying that, but like, it's much easier for us to scale things up and evolve the game as opposed to having to go back to the drawing board and like re-architect everything from scratch.
That idea of replayability, it seems like for now, 5 years in the industry at least, it's like, well, that's the future. This is what we got to do. We got to build content that can be replayable.
No, but I agree. That's like, it's one of the buzzwords also. At the moment, like we're making, like I think Eurogame, the headline was like Savage Planet is a deeply unfashionable game in the best possible way. Like we're making the most finishable game possible. You know what I mean? I have 2 little kids. If you say your game is 1,000 hours, I'm turning off the TV. You know what I mean? Like I do not have 1,000. I don't have 100 hours. So like our goal is to have sort of 10 really focused, bespoke, hours that's really tight and really different. So like we're completely the opposite. But you should have us all back on in a year, and I'll say why we're out of business. That would be like that.
But why go for replayability, Josh? Like what are you going for? Is that following the market or following your gut?
No,
you can say market. It's fine. There's no shame in that.
Well, I mean, obviously we want to play games we want to make games that get played, right? That's kind of the business we're in. But I mean, for us, it's about trying to create. We're into sandbox experiences. We're into like creating systems that are interesting to interact with, put tools in the hands of players, and let them create their own stories. And the more, I mean, it's always a delicate balance because you get too complex and you kind of spin out of control, and things turn into chaos. And the way that we develop, we're very iterative and explorative, and we're sort of discovering things as we go. And there are times when things get super chaotic, and we're like, okay, we got to rein it in, we got to focus things and find a way to make these systems all make sense. But for me as a player, and I think I speak for all of Midwinter, those are the things that we love. We love kind of playing with those toys and seeing what happens. And that's the essence of replayability. I don't know if I answered your question. That's, like, to me, that's what makes a game replayable. Is like I want to keep kind of poking at it and see what I can do.
Right. Just studying how the players are actually interacting with that world. I mean, how much do you worry about analytics and stuff like that, Alex?
Like actual in hardcore data?
Yeah.
I mean, at the big studios, obviously you're aiming for a very large player base, and so you have to sort of play to the middle a little bit. So you're really looking for the spiky areas, in your project, and trying to make sure, that you push them in. I think now with a small team, we're trying to find spikes. I often say to our guys, like, I want 10s and 0s. These are the reviews that we want. You know what I mean? Like, people that love it and people that just bounce off it. This is great, because an ocean of 6s and 7s is no one's buying it. No one hates it, but no one's buying it. So like, we look at analytics and data in the sense that we really try to make strong flavors and strong decisions and really push. Whereas we used to use analytics to sort of homogenize everything. So yeah.
How do the 10s and 0s happen? Is that just somebody on the team saying this effing sucks and everybody else saying this is the best idea, or is it everybody on the team saying this is bold, I think we can pull it off, and then when it's released, then everyone says this is
like,
zero?
it's funny, like systemic is also something that I'm deeply interested in, and when we're on Far Cry, it made me laugh at seeing someone being killed by a bear on fire. Because I'd thrown a Molotov cocktail like 30 seconds ago and forgotten about it. Yeah. Was systemic in the best way and hilarious. And so I was like, there's comedy in this, and I think there's a type of comedy that's unique to video games that's happening in that, where you're telling the joke to yourself in a weird way, you know what I mean? Like, you're setting it up and then paying it off to yourself and laughing. And I was like, this is a strong decision to try and do. Like, can we make a game that continually makes you laugh because of things that you did? So that was the sort of strong flavor that we want. And so even just a comedy, there aren't that many comedies in games. And again, like, we have a gun in our hand, but we cannot be a shooter. If we look like a shooter, we're going to get crushed. So, we have to be an adventure game, out here. And so a comedic adventure game just felt like a strong stone to throw.
Yeah, John Romero, what do you think is the funniest game that's ever been released? Like, what game have you laughed at the most? Maybe it's a better way of phrasing that.
I laughed during Minecraft a lot.
Oh, that's
it's just crazy stuff that would happen in Minecraft. Just you play so long and you forget to sleep in the bed, or maybe you don't even make a bed, and you're just like gathering all this stuff and you put it in a chest, but you don't even know where you dug a hole where you put everything, and then you get blown up by a creeper and you're like hunting as fast as you can within 5 minutes to find the last place you're at. Or just the crazy situations that happen in Minecraft. I mean, that's like almost the most pure story creating game there is, you know, because you talk about, it's like when you deathmatch and you talk about a deathmatch. It's like Minecraft is just making stories constantly, and they're funny, you know, a lot of them are really funny.
It's a bold move then to be like, hey, we're going to be funny in a game.
Yeah.
We're going to write the things that'll make you laugh. Not you just being mean to your co-op buddies. This is actually going to be legitimate.
No, and also like I think it's not when we can't be. And I'm sure that's actually true of everybody on the couch. But you know, I used to think AAA development kind of like making a buffet. You know, and you need you need multiplayer because some people like multiplayer. And you need co-op because some people also like co-op. But not everyone does. You need a single-player story that's really strong. And you know, UGC is big, so we should put in some level creation tools. And you just have something for everybody. And it's it's very expensive. And you know what I mean. Again, it's playing sort of across the board. Whereas we have to pick one chunk. You know, so like where we're only single-player, there's no PvP in our game. You know, there's no UGC. There's none of this sort of stuff. So that sort of really focused decision. And so some people who are looking for that deathmatch experience, like you mentioned, are just not going to touch it at all. You know, it's off their radar.
It's funny you talk about that because we always describe it as like, you know, you're kind of building a theme park and there's all these different rides and attractions that you want people to go on, and I think that's kind of the essence of AAA. And like you're saying, you know, when you're indie and you're small, you got to kind of pick the one thing that you're going to focus on. And I couldn't agree with more with what you're saying. Like, you want strong reactions. You need strong reactions. We were just talking about this today. Like, having everybody react to your game and say like, yeah, you know, it's fine. It was okay.
You failed.
Yeah, you totally failed, right? Like, who needs that in this world? You want people who are like, yeah, I fucking love that game.
Emotional
and then
reaction,
obviously someone else is gonna be like, yeah, that game sucks. I don't want to play it. That's fine.
Yeah, actually, it's like it reminds me. Someone said on the team, like the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. You know what I mean? Like we're just like, man, I don't care. I'm not even looking at it. You know, so we want active, opinions being built.
Yeah, for sure. So how do you find the scope for your game, Dead Romero? Empire of Sin. Like, how do you, as I'd imagine, smaller team? Like, how big a team is
just a little over 20 people. And it is, we have really great creation tools, so we can actually make a decent amount of content. But the game is made to be a replayable game the way Age of Empires or Civ is made to be replayable. So it's not like a story from start to end. It's like there's a lot of stories in the game told by different characters that may or may not appear in the game that you're playing. But it's a strategy game that you can just play over and over and over again. So it's just made that way. But it's really fun. It's super fun.
You enjoy the development so far?
Of course, it's best team ever.
Correct me if I'm wrong. It seemed like for a while it's like you're kind of leaning more into Doom, right? You're making some new levels, having some more fun, talking more about it.
Sigil,
Yeah, and then I watched like your excellent video, 2-player production you did a while ago, right? We're just diving in deep, I think, talking about Doom. What is this shift in your career? Is this you flexing a muscle you haven't flexed in a while for just creating something entirely new, or do you want to talk about just that shift?
Well, so this game design is Brenda's design. So my wife came up with. She's wanted to make this game for 20 years. So she's been lead designer of Wizardry 8. She worked on Jagged Alliance. She's played Civ forever, and she loves this time period. She loves Chicago Prohibition, 1920s. And she's wanted to make this game for a long time, and I guess the way that I've done stuff in my career, I've founded just like 10 companies at this point, and each one has been for a certain platform or a certain type of game. So the last one that we had in California was a social game company, so we did a lot of Facebook stuff and mobile stuff. And then when we decided to move to Ireland in 2015, we made a brand new company, and it was going to be core games. So we're coming up with pitches like this one, and Paradox was a perfect match for it. Yeah. And so that's what we've been working on for years now.
Since these two guys started up their own company not too long ago, what advice do you have for them for starting your own game studio?
Well, it's kind of, first of all, it's too late now, but you got to know your co-founders so well, right? Because errors magnify over time, and anything that is wrong at the beginning gets way wrong later on. But if you don't know your founders really well, or you didn't when you founded, you need to actually get shit signed. So always assume everything's gonna go bad. Yeah. It will go bad, right?
So take the prenup mentality.
Protect the company from it going bad. And when you're interviewing people, for us, the most valuable part of interviewing people is always the lunch trap. because then that's when they think they're not being interviewed and they act like themselves.
Right.
And then they talk about how many guns they bring to work or crazy shit, And so people do dumb stuff during lunch or when they think they're not being interviewed, and then you find out whether they're really good or not. But to even get in the door, they're kind of pre-screened before like they actually have the ability to do stuff. And then it's kind of like culture fit. And then like, what are you really like?
Yeah. Well, I think this reminds me of I was hearing the other day some friends who were interviewing with Sony Santa Monica. They have an extreme version of that where they were turning up and they were making them do 3 shots. It was at a show, 3 shots, wow. And then sit down and have a chat about what you want to do. And I was like, that works. Yeah, I was impressed.
What pillars did you guys have for starting up a new studio? Like, here's the big do's and don'ts. This is going to be our whole thing. And from the lessons you've taken from the AAA space, what were the big do's and don'ts?
I think it was just ready for me personally. It was ready to make it more of a situation where the people who were making the game owned everything about the game. You know what I mean? That was it. It was this sort of control freak behavior at that point. But like, if we're going to go down, let's go down because we act like, let's die actively. You know what I mean? Instead of passively. Let's leap off the cliff instead of being slowly nudged off it over time. So that was the bit. So make some, again, strong decisions and follow it through. But it is funny. I think you're right. Things that magnify over time is like, it was very clear there are people in the studio who wanted to make games and who wanted to make a functioning group of people that got along and make content, and then there's some people who for some reason thought it was a good way to make money, and you're like, this is the worst business in the world, like to make money, like we're going to make creative work on top of technology, like this is the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Like, so that became more and more obvious over time. So I think you're always, the learning for me was you're iterating on the game, but you're also iterating on the people making the game. So like sometimes you do have to make hard decisions and and say like you might be a great person and a great developer, but you may not be a fit for this development studio. So that's been the hard stuff.
What are you going for, Josh?
I mean, so I had the experience, before I joined the Halo team, I had the experience of founding a studio in Vancouver, Propaganda. Made a ton of mistakes like through that experience. I learned the pick your founders and do the whole learn who you are and what you want and make sure you're aligned. That lesson, learned that very hard there.
Yeah, and also the same passion too.
Yeah, make sure everybody is in it for the same reasons and that because you're going to go through really hard times.
Yeah.
Like starting any company is hard. Starting a game company, like you're saying, like there's many other ways, easier ways you're going to be able to be a successful business. This is a hard thing. So you're going to go through these tough times. You got to be on the same page. That was one thing. I think the other thing is like with Propaganda, we grew so fast. We kind of like came out and we're like, okay, we got to be a rocket ship and build this thing. And we went from like 15 people to 90 people in a year. And the culture thing kills you, right? Yeah. Like if you're bringing people in and you're like, this person is incredibly talented, they have this background and everything, like they should be a fit. There's maybe a couple of red flags, but no, it'll be good. No, that never works out. And so we've been really, really, I think measured about going through, spending the first 6 months just talking amongst ourselves, the 4 founders, like what kind of studio do we want to build? Like what kind of games do we want to make? What's the culture we want to build here? What are the principles that we stand for? And I think those really deliberate conversations were really important, and they informed all of the people that we brought to the studio since then. And so far, knock on whatever this is, like it's been good. So I hope that holds.
Yeah. Don't you think, like, also, I think, we're getting towards the end of our first project, and I think that's going to be a big tipping point too, like going from start to finish on something with the same people, especially those people you haven't worked with before, and then that sort of, understanding of what worked and what didn't work going to the second game, you know what I mean, and shrinking the type of game you want to make, or making it more concrete, I guess, so that people say, oh, that's what you meant when you said, first person, explore them up, as opposed to like, I thought it was this crazy thing over here, and it's turning out to be this. So I really think like for us, the second game will be a really different experience because it sort of narrowed the focus of everybody over time.
Yeah. E3 2019 in general, I'm sure you've all been so busy, haven't focused too much on it. How's the state of the industry? That classic question. Have you learned anything recently that has changed your perspective on what the hell is going on in the game industry these days?
I mean, I'll start them in the middle. I just say, like, I've been in the industry a long time. Not quite as long as you. I just have to take a moment. I have to just take a moment.
I've seen things, John Romero.
I just got to take a moment and just say, like, John Romero is part of the reason I'm in this industry. Like, Doom inspired me to want to make games. And But the industry is constantly changing, and that's part of what is so awesome about the games industry. And so the state of the industry, like, what is the state of the industry? I don't know. It's changing every single year, and it's challenging us to grow and adapt, and that's the magic of it.
Yeah.
So
I think it's never been a better time ever to be making games. You know, there's so many platforms, so many ways to get to market, so many price points. You don't have to be in Walmart at the same price everyone else on a box. No one stocks you. There's so many things, and it's crazy. Like Flux is the only constant. So now you have like Big Ben. I've never even heard of them before today. Where the Sony section used to be, like in the
you like Sherlock Holmes games?
Yeah, and I was like, this is fascinating though. Like things are moving around, but there's so much content that I remember a story I heard years ago from I think it was Harlan Ellison talking about how in like 1960 something he'd read every science fiction book ever written.
Oh wow!
You know what I mean? Because it wasn't that big, and then he was like, at that point, he was like, I can't read everything that was written like this year. You know what I mean? It's just this exponential funnel. And I feel the same. I feel like in '95 I played every significant game ever made. You know what I mean? And now I'm like, I can't play things on phones. You know what I mean? Like, so that's like 3,000 games a week I'm just not touching. And I'm like RTSs, whole genres. I'm like, fuck you, I'm done. Like that's it. You know what I mean? Like,
how many games are put on the App Store, the iOS App Store? 20,000 a month.
Yeah, that's insane. Crazy. That just makes me say never make a game for the App Store. You know what I mean? It's like throwing a dart. You're like, really? I hate money.
I hate money. Yeah, I'm spending all my time on it.
Games for when you do a poop.
John, with your perspective, do you ever feel like you understand what the game industry was? Was there any era where it's like, okay, things are stable, I get it now? Or does it feel this chaotic all the time throughout history?
You know what? It's gotten more chaotic because back at the beginning of the industry, there weren't as many platforms that were stable platforms, and when they were stable, they stayed stable for like 10 years. So, I mean, the fact that the PC's been around and has been like a dominant platform, back in the 80s, it was like Commodore 64s and Atari 800s and Apple IIs, and those kind of stayed for 10 years until they died, and then really it was the rise of the PC at that time. And so PC gaming at that point was just taking off with all the new hardware, and people were able to do more, so genres could be expanded on and created, and it was it was really exploding at that time. And it's just like with the amount of like VR and AR and all the new generations of platforms and stuff, it's changing way faster than it used to. So it was a way less change, and now it's just like insane amounts of change.
Do you think though, like now that you sort of know everything too, like between the online, you know what I mean, these shows, you're sort of aware of everything? I can imagine that in that period too, you could sort of like be in your bunker a little bit more and just be really pursuing what you thought was cool and not really knowing about everything else, and so maybe be different instead of being affected by everybody else's decisions all the time.
I think it's smart to do that anyway. I mean, back I could get so much more done when there was not an internet connection because there wasn't an internet. So you turn your computer on and you start programming. Like what else are you gonna do? There's no modem. But I didn't even have a modem most of the time, so it was just like. You start work at 10 and you finish at midnight or whatever, and you coded all day. There was no web page to read, and there was almost no phone calls.
No Twitter drama.
Yeah, there's nothing but making games.
But do you guys it's an interesting new company thing, like because I know certain studios like Rocksteady, for example, there's no public internet on anyone's computer. There's one computer with the internet, no Facebook, no anything, right? You come in, you work, and there's a public. If you need to Google something, there's the computer that Googles things in the middle of the room. Go Google it.
So what about your phone? That do that. I just don't. I don't understand.
It's incredible.
That's oppressive.
Yeah, I don't think I could cope. But like,
what about your phone though? Did you take your phone away?
Yeah, put your phone in this box.
Yeah, it's like Apple.
Amazing, like Wi-Fi inhibiting paint over everything.
Yeah, is that the secret? That's how all those old companies were able to crank out so many games back in the day?
Yeah,
well, they were a lot smaller too.
The industry was made by indies, right? Because publishers back then were only a few people. They turned into big names, but they were only a few people because all the games were sent to them by indies working at home. And that's how everything got big, was just indies building the thing, and people like Trip Hawkins going out and connecting to indies as fast as he could to get the product to make a big company. And it was amazing to get so much done. I mean, if you look at like even just id Software, before id Software I'd made dozens of games and published probably 15 or 17 or something before that. And at id, within 5 years, 27 games. because like you just hear about the big ones, but we made a lot of games before even Wolfenstein.
Yeah.
And because we're making them in 2 months, and we used to make 2 games at a time, so we would make 2 games in 2 months.
Dude, the amount, like the learning that you must go through when
like
you're
shipping,
you're having to make decisions
shipping constantly, right? So shipping constantly. It was awesome to be able to ship, and your scope gets really good.
Yeah.
Like your scoping is like you are done on this day in 2 months.
But I had the same experience in that, not in a cool way, sadly, but like I was starting out like on Game Boy games, right? And you'd get a phone. I remember I got a phone call from Activision in September, and they realized by reading their contract that they'd signed a 3-game deal with Marvel, and that if they didn't publish a 3rd game, they were going to lose the license. So like, can you ship a game for Christmas? Right? You know the game, and you're like, okay. So we shipped the game. You know what I mean? And we were making Game Boy games in the same 2 months, 3 months.
Nice.
We actually ported Doom to Game Boy Advance. One of those bizarre things. You're like full circle.
Wow.
Did you work on that?
I did not, but I was watching them while we were smashing out something else. We did.
That's really
I worked
good.
on the Duke Nukem Advance game, which was new levels and stuff. But
Yeah.
we were actually using that whole engine.
Yeah,
right?
build,
Like on
the build engine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like it was funny, but the same thing, doing like 7 games in a year and learning from being all of us pretty terrible at our jobs, but like going from pitching to like talking about it to smashing it in a box to getting it out the door to dealing with the fallout and doing that a lot. I think many people in that team are still in the business, like 20 years later, because it was a great way to learn.
Yeah, the flip side of that, and I've never had this experience. I'm curious. I don't know if either of you have like the games that take 5, 6, 7 years to make. Like I don't know if I could do it. Like
it's too much.
On the one hand, it's great that you get that time to kind of pursue your vision and finesse every little detail, but then I think
you just do it
that would
twice.
go insane.
I think you just do it again. I think if the games that take that long, I didn't do it all, but doing finishing Spore, the last few years of Spore, you're doing another lap through.
Long,
It was like 8. Some of those guys, like Chris Hecker, was like 6, 7 years on that project. And I think you start to. It's a form of insanity. You know what I mean? Where you're lapping the arguments and you're lapping the problems. You know what I mean? You're doing a new thing, and then you're chasing technology, and then you're chasing like the industry. And you just should have just got it out the door.
I worked on an MMO for 4.5 years that never shipped.
Man, that is.
Do you still have the assets? Can you go back and look at those? Is it sweet or just painful?
Yeah, well, I have tons of concept art from it. I have a whole bunch of stuff from it. It was awesome, but it was something that is never going to come back. I mean, it was at Gazillion, and I think Gazillion's gone now, so it's completely done. But it was 100 people a day, every day, 100 people working on this game, and when it's over, it's like, well, I learned a lot. I learned a lot from that, but it didn't take the company down. It was just like, okay, that sucks. But we had a bunch of other games that we were making at the same time. And that was in 2009, and Gazillion finally just 6 months ago shut down. Right. But
what was the MMO?
Yeah, it was an MMO called Redwood. It was just like codenamed Redwood. It was basically World of Warcraft for kids, and it had math like concepts in it, stealth learning. So kids would be exposed to these cool puzzles that are they're not numerical, they're like visual, but they get you thinking about ratios and other math at like a 6th grade level. And the representations are not like the ones that you would see in a book. So you're learning how to think that way before you get to it in school, which then would hopefully make them like math more because it's actually easier for them because they've played a game that kind of helped them think in that way. And so it's really just like on a high level exposure to math concepts to help kids like math so they would have a successful career, because STEM is a good path for a good career.
I needed your game when I was growing up.
Yeah, it was great.
It was
cool. It was really amazing. I have like a movie of it. It looked like wow. I mean, it was beautiful.
And then you could have expansion. It was like, hey, the geometry expansion.
It was math. Math was like the universal language, so it was easy to localize it.
That's cool. Do you ever think about getting into educational games? Maxis kind of, was on the edge of that line
Maxis was toys. That's the problem we made. Everyone forgot, towards the end. Like, there's too much game in sport in a sense. But SimCity, The Sims, they're toys that you goof around with, and they react to you, and they come alive. But they're still toys at their core. But I think there's still education in lots of things. I think that's such a hard problem. You know what I mean? Like, you're dealing with education, you're dealing with an MMO, like online, like that's a scary concept.
It was hard. For me. Just shipping an MMO is hard. And we had to build a learning design team. and it's made up of people that created Lego Mindstorms and Leapfrog toys and educators in math, all from different parts of the world, and you have to have an educational advisory board, and it's huge.
And then you got the problem too of realizing that kids don't have credit cards. And you're like, wait, who's paying?
It was subscription too. It was subscription.
Yeah. But someone had to subscribe. Like, where am I getting?
Yeah. Okay, talking a little bit about the olden times. We can't have this panel without asking you, Commander Keen.
Yes.
The reboot. Did you watch that trailer?
I did. I actually watched both. There were two. There were two of them.
Interesting. What do you think?
So the first one had this really cool cartoon, which I thought was neat, and they introduced Keen's sister, I guess, or there was a girl Keen.
Yeah, I think it's Billy and Billy, right? If panel.
Which makes
Billy and Billy. That's amazing.
I think so.
Billy Blaze, and then maybe Billy with an I on the end, or
something
IE
like
or
that.
something. So I didn't get the names, but it was cool to see just that they did a lot of work on that. And then when I saw the game video, I was like, well, that's not a platformer the way that Keen was a platformer, and my thought was like, well, the designer behind it must not be making this Keen for the people who played Keen originally.
Yeah, and then you wonder, why did you call it Commander Keen?
Well, I think they want to take it in a different direction, and and it seemed to me that it was kind of an experimental gameplay kind of thing, because I haven't played a game like it. So maybe this is like the first, like, let's introduce IP and do something interesting and new with it. For an audience that is not the people that used to play Keen but play a bunch of mobile games. Yeah. So with that kind of design, when I saw it, I was like, well, I don't play stuff like this, but maybe there is already an audience that does that, and maybe this will catch fire because it hits all those people that do play stuff like that.
How does that feel? What are your emotions when you see the headline or see it on Twitter? Like, what is this? Commander Keen is trending? Like,
oh well, not just that, but it's just like, oh, Commander Keen, this is great because it's almost 30 years since we made our Keens, and Wolfenstein all over the place, Doom all over the place, Quake champions,
Have you played the new Wolfensteins? What are you?
I've been looking at it, and it looks fucking great.
Yeah, they are good.
Really good.
Well,
really
Machine Games rocks. So Machine Games has nailed Wolfenstein. That's not even a problem, you know. And I think that the internal id studio has nailed Doom. And people were worried before 2016 came out, and it did come out, and people were blown away, thought it was amazing. And then when the trailer for Eternal came out, it was like, they didn't mess it up, like they just made it the way that Doom 2 was better than the original, because of the double barrel. They did that, but then with the new video that they put out with the story, so much more story than I ever would have thought was going to be in it. It looks just awesome. I can't wait.
Do you love following it? Do you still feel emotionally attached to it, or you just okay?
Yeah, and it's funny because I talked to the people that did. Like, I run into them at shows, and the lead designer and all that. Like today, I ran into more id guys. And they're like, yeah, we're working on Doom and everything, and so it's like, you guys are taking it forward. Do a good job, keep going. I mean, like say Wolfenstein, I can't say, oh yeah, I own Wolfenstein. I made Wolfenstein after Castle Wolfenstein 10 years earlier. It's really Silas Warner made Wolfenstein, and so we made a modern version of it. Luckily, we actually got to show it to Silas Warner during the month that we just released it. We actually went to a Apple II conference, and he was there speaking, and so we could actually show him on the very first color laptop ever made. It was a $5,000 Toshiba laptop, and we got to show it to him, and he thought it was super cool. We hung out for all day and night talking to him and had him sign everything, and so we did that, and then Return to Castle Wolfenstein, and it's like, people can just take it on into the future and just keep doing a kick-ass job.
Yeah, I think it's easier with the brands, like the big ones, than the characters somehow. I don't know if you have that feeling, but sometimes we on the Assassin stuff. It's like obviously the brand was before we worked on it on the Assassin's 3 team, and then it's continued after. But some of the characters that we put in that were just ours, they were out of thin air. It's weird to see them keep going. You know what I mean? And then you're that I find that weird. Or there's dolls and things, and that's weird. Whereas obviously the franchise is its own beast. You know what I mean? People reinterpreting it and owning it.
But you're like, but that was my sliver.
Yeah, but that little guy, you're like, they have 6 meetings about the color of his goddamn sash. You know what I mean? On his face. Now you're going crazy with it. So anyway, I find that.
Do you watch the Ubisoft press conference? conference? Is that?
I love the UB's like if I was ever going to go back to a big company, UB, I always had a great time at UB, and they're so quirky. It's such a funny place. You know, like it's still like a family business, so you can sort of have wacky ideas, and Eve or someone will go like, oh yeah, give it a shot. Yeah, you know what I mean? So they'll have like Flow Rider coming out and singing a song, and then there's like a Wii Dance game with and then there's like a paramilitary game, and they're sort of open to many things if people making it are passionate, and I think that's a really good way to run a business.
Yeah,
and they have patience, which all the other big studios don't. As far as when I was at EA, it was very difficult for them to say, like it's okay to make a mistake and keep going,
right.
And get it good instead of just like, well, clearly if you've made a mistake, you must be the stupidest person alive. Therefore, we're canceling the game, firing you, and executing your family. It's like it's done. So but UB, I do like the UB conference.
We still had projects canceled or kind of.
We had Pioneer canceled. Yeah.
Exactly.
That was
like.
I had one
that was my
canceled
last
by
day.
UB.
Oh really? I was like, that's it. I'm out. Goodbye. No, it was I waited a while, but that was the end for me of like trying to get that new IP up and running there, and it was. But I mean, it was right. It had issues going on at that sort of point, but like you really just. We did several games together, and then at that point, you're like, no, we want to go in different directions.
And that was a game that was teased in Watch Dogs 2?
Yeah, that was my last attempt to make it work, was to stuff that footage in. You know what I mean? Like to force them. Yeah, like come on, it's public now, baby. Come on, it says there. And I was so close, I could feel it vibrating, and then it went, nope, that's not.
But the crazy thing is that UB's still crazy enough of a company where it's like we're still gonna release it through Watch Dogs 2. Like no other company would allow.
No.
Let's go ahead and leak our next game through
I was
this
like
other
chatting to
game.
Pat Lord, who was the creative director of that game, and going, just put it in, Pat. Like if you hack the Ubisoft office in San Francisco, play the video of my game, Pat. And he's like, right, let's do it. And I was like, poof, we're good. Like, we had to show him, obviously, but it was fun. I thought it was a really cute idea, but yeah, it didn't get there. But anyway, that's.
Do you think anything from that game will ever see the light of
Nope. No. I was going to say something that would get me in trouble, but no. No. We can keep drinking. Keep drinking.
There's things we can't say.
There are things we cannot say. Yeah.
Josh, what does it like to watch like the Halo Infinite trailer?
It's cool. It's really cool because I mean we have so many friends on that team and people that I worked with for almost 10 years of my life, and they're super passionate about what they're building, and I know they've been working hard on it for a long time, and it's exciting for them to be able to show what they did at the Xbox briefing. So I'm looking forward to seeing gameplay, right? As everybody, because I think this. I don't know. I haven't had a chance to watch a ton of stuff because I've been stuck in a little room showing the game. But there's a lot of trailers this year, it seems, and I know I'm somebody who loves to see gameplay, and happily like we just were able to release some gameplay from our game, which we're excited about.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be awesome to see when that game is ready to be played, and I think that'll probably be
very soon
next year, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I have no inside information. Don't.
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger, Will Robinson. NDA.
Whatever happens to come out. Yeah, it's amazing when a company as big as 343, Microsoft can put things on hold a little bit. Like after Halo 5, like, hey, we're going to take a breath. We're going to kind of reboot things. Like, what does it take within a company, from your guys' perspective, to have that kind of foresight, to put things on hold and get ready for the next generation like that?
I mean, I think it takes leadership and courage, and I mean, I've never worked for UB, but I totally respect from the outside looking in that they have a respect for the passion of what it takes to create great art within this medium, and that's something that's always impressed me, and they're willing to do, like as you said, like really wacky, crazy shit that's outside the box, and they always seem to have their finger on the pulse of what's cool at any moment in time. And so presumably if leaders within that organization are able to identify those cool things, they're going to like support that and let it flourish. I think in any of the big companies, you need somebody who's willing to say, yeah, this game needs more time, it needs more work, it needs more support, like whatever it might be. And it's just really unfortunate when you see games that are kind of like they're almost there, but they're sent out to die. Because they just needed a little bit more time, one more month, or 6 more months, or whatever it is. But like this industry's so hit and miss. Like you either have a massive hit or you have almost nothing. And so a lot of times when you put something out there and you don't give it the time it needs, you're just sort of sending it to die.
But you need success. I think that's like everyone gets more patient with success. You know, either games that were reviewed well, which makes you believe in the people, or you've made enough money on something where you can, take the time. Because, like, for instance, I'm pretty sure all three of us, our game's going out. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to delay it a bit, but it's going out. Like, and you have to come up with other strategies on how to make that work, or whether it's like, ongoing support or going live or early access, or like there's a million ways to do it these days. But, like I shouldn't say I certainly couldn't get Typhoon to like say, let's just give it 6 more months. Right. You know what I mean? At this point, even if we wanted to, like we're pushing a bit, it's got to go out.
Well, even E3 is almost in that same situation. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, your E3 demo was done a month ago, right?
Yeah.
Nope. Really embarrassing. Coming in
hours
before you.
We're pretty disciplined about, like, we've been through the ringer. We've had the shit, so we know you got to lock it down early. We started with a lockdown date that was like, we're going to have our final build 3 weeks before E3.
2 weeks.
We were, 1 week. It was 1 week. And it's like, we got to put this change in. It's like, we still got 3 days. Like, we got backup builds.
I was emailing our tech director saying, how do I unlock the cheats again? Like, you know what I mean? Like, because we locked them out so no one could trigger them during the demo. And I was like, I need to change something. Give me the cheats back. Like, what do I put in the ini file? Come on, tell me.
I know I told you never to give me these back. I need them right now.
I was so foolish.
That's why you put an in-game console in there.
No, I know. I was plugging in the PC going, surely the dev cheats will work. No, he was really efficient, our TD. He cut the cord on everything.
Nice.
What does the rest of your week look like? Are you guys going to get a chance to roam the floor? Anything you're looking forward to?
11.
It's all interviews.
And you guys, let's just take a moment to say E3, as lovely as it is, and it's an honor to be able to go to E3, and it's great. Extending it by an hour is cruel and inhuman. Like, you know what I mean? Like an extra hour a day in that sweaty box. You know what I mean? And I know what all the press and all the bands will do is no one will come at 9 a.m. tomorrow when I'll be there. Or they'll all say, things have come up, and they'll start at 11, and now they'll all try to sneak in at the back end. So, it's horrible. 9 to 6 is mean.
Oh God! What are the go-to questions for the press for you? And how many have I hit tonight? Like, what question have you answered the most so far? Just in day one, right?
It's like, why funny? I think that's the...
Why funny?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of...
funny?
Yeah, that's it. Come on, right? I was like, I think they think funny means it must be stupid.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like,
you
it can't be anything...
the history of comedy and games, though. Like, most of it sucks.
Well, Tim Schafer just sold his whole company. Like, he's a rich man. He's going home in a gold chariot tonight because of funny. So I'm telling you. Like, yeah, exactly.
Tim.
To take comedy sold. You know what I mean? Like, he sold out, literally.
Oh, yeah.
But, no, I think it's hard.
I'm super happy for Tim.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he's worked really long and hard on that company.
Yeah.
He's given up everything.
And like, I don't the best perspective on this, but like I visited Obsidian after they sold, and for like the Outer Worlds cover story to the Game Informer, and I was shocked how hands off Microsoft was during the entire visit.
Well, everyone, let's be clear, it's not a Microsoft comment, but every company when they buy you is hands off until they're not. Like, you know what I mean? They're hands off, and then like, you're a bit late. Wait, I don't know. Like this decision. Why did you leave? And then 3 years in, you answer this question. Like
it
right
happens
now,
faster with EA though.
Yeah, exactly. BioWare, they seem very hands off right now.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. At the beginning.
Just drink your beer.
Sure, especially like from Microsoft's point of view, where it's like, okay, we want all these companies to do their thing because hey,
that's why we bought them.
Everything's fresh. Here we go. And then you never know if it's like, hey, it turns out we really need to crank some more stuff out in this direction towards the end, right?
The audience didn't react the way we expected to that last game.
Yeah.
I think there's truth to that. I mean, I will speak as someone who, obviously been at Microsoft fairly recently, a few years back. I think they've got great leadership there right now. They've got Matt Booty is fantastic. He gets game development. I'll say this, like, I rarely have seen any person at an executive leadership level like Matt who is still a content creator. Like the dude 3D models in his spare time, he's like an amazing photographer. Phil Spencer has done a great job of like kind of creating a great environment there for developers. And so I think there's definitely going to be a honeymoon period with any acquisition. And as you say, if things go off the rails, there will be controls put in place at some point. But like, I think there's a pretty good future for those studios that they've acquired.
What's Phil Spencer like behind the scenes, though? He's so good on messaging. I think he's brilliant, like one of the best in the industry. But what's the dark side? There's got to be some dark side, right?
I'm sorry to disappoint. There's not really. I mean, he cares about games. Like
Matt Booty?
That's what.
No, Phil Spencer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, Matt's got a lot of experience. Like he learned a lot from Midway. Yeah, because he ran Midway as well for a while, and he came up from I think QA, So he's seen everything.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
He's seen the whole arc.
yeah, he's been through a lot. So he did learn a lot from Midway because he got to see the decisions that were made that kind of led to the downfall. So, and he is a total gamer and he loves games, and so it's great to be able to get somebody that's already done all of that and has all that experience and bring them into Microsoft that actually is never going down.
Yeah.
You know, they can actually have good resources and a lot of the support.
John, who do you look up to in the industry? You know everybody. You've seen everything. Who do you think is really great out there that maybe doesn't get enough credit?
There's a lot of great indies out there, you know, that haven't been like discovered or have not blown up, but just kind of work away. Especially the guys that make games just by themselves, like Stardew Valley, you know, stuff like that. Or just so many of them out there. There's a game right now called Death Trash that I've been dying.
Yeah, it looks amazing, doesn't it?
I fucking love that game.
What is it?
It's called Death Trash. Yeah, deathtrash.com.
Yeah.
And I met the guy in Poznan, Poland, and at a conference that Intel, I guess, was throwing a conference, and they had an indie section like they all do, and this guy was making this game where he's done everything, even the pixel art is very unique looking pixel art. It just very disturbing. Like it's like Lovecraftian looking pixel art. This guy's got a shotgun, and the shit he says is hilarious. And the guy's just making it on his own, and it's so good. And anyone that looks at the webpage and stuff looks at it, it's just like, holy shit, when's this coming out? Because it's so good. You know, it's like Owlboy, kind of like amazing. But yeah, I pay more attention to indies. You know, I pay way more attention because that's where all the really cool ideas come from. Yeah. And so like I've been indie forever until I wasn't when I had the investors. You know, with Gazillion, but then went back to indie right after that. It's like it's more fun not to take other people's money like that. But you know, it's they take more chances. I think indies take a lot of chances. They're not trying to do formulaic stuff. They do a lot more work than you know. I think because they're making a whole game themselves, so they really understand it because they're doing all parts of it. And it takes a lot more determination, focus, and everything to just be able to finish a game on your own like that.
Yeah. Well, and then it's not just building the game itself. It's like all of the apparatus that goes around the game as well. You've got to, you know, be interfacing with the community. You got to be figuring out how are you going to market this game and get the word out about it. It's, you know,
and their stories are so great.
Yeah.
You know, when you talk to them or you read about what it took to get through Stardew Valley or any other game like that, it's just like wow. And I know that Death Trash is going to be a crazy story because it's been so long that he's been making the game. It's not out yet. It's so good. It's almost like Edmund McMillan and Mugenics. You know, best game he'll ever make if that thing comes out. Unbelievable game. So good.
Have you played Mugenics?
I've seen it at his house. I mean, holy crap! What a funny game. So good. And when I saw it, I was like, you got to get this out. This is your best game ever. You know, and he's had like 5 projects going at one time. You know, and it's his world is really interesting. The way that he's like an indie doing several games at one time. He's like Ozzy with a guitarist, a different guitarist for each album, and he's making 4 at once. Right. You know, right. So his stuff is amazing. You know, just people like that are super inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, before we close this out. Does anybody have any questions for each other? Do you have any questions for John Romero? Do you have any questions for John Romero? Anything we need to get off the table here? Anything you've ever been dying to ask?
Put us on the spot.
I know, literally put us on the spot. Like, I'm sorry to do this, but just want to make sure. This
is your opportunity.
This is your moment.
Yeah. No, like I was just at the Strong Museum of Play.
Oh, you saw my Apple II?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And walking through the halls, they have his Apple II like on a podium on a purple blanket. It's like this holy object there. It's amazing.
It's right next to Bill Budge's.
Oh, okay.
Which is, to me, like he's a hero to me. And so I kind of had 2 heroes back then, 2 programming heroes. And the other one was Nasser Jabeli. And Nasser Jabeli was a programmer of Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3, Secret of Mana. and he was my hero way before that. That was like 1980, 1981. His stuff was incredible. And if you do read interviews, there's lots of interviews available for anyone that like did early 80s programming. They were all inspired by him. And so he was like the earliest guy.
Yeah.
And anyway, I have his Apple II that he used to write those games.
No way.
Yeah, I have the Secret of Mana dev machine from Nintendo. I have the ROMs that made Final Fantasy. So I have all this museum stuff. We're going to be opening a museum in Galway of all these original artifacts that are unique because they're not mass replicated. They're used to make these games, like the sketches of Doom. The ideas of the logo and what the screen could look like when it's rendering, and all the ideas for what the game is going to be. The paper that was written on, it wasn't on a computer; it was just on paper. So I have tons of concept art for Deus Ex and like you name it. I got so much stuff, and but yeah. So Nasser was I have his computer. I want that next to mine at the Strong, but they said that they don't have enough room. So I'm like.
What?
Put them all inside of one cabinet then. Yeah. Put all three of them in there. But I'm not going to give you his computer until I know it's going to go there. And he's like, well, we'll have to take Bill's out. I'm like, no way. We're not taking Bill's computer out of there. We got to figure out some way of doing it. But to me, that's like crazy that I could actually have my computer next to these guys.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's cool.
I think it's worthy. I think you made that mark. You cleared that hurdle.
And did you see Brenda's? She's got her game there too.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, she's got a board game there under
is that Train?
No, it's called Shiakon Lot. We have Train at the office about to go to Strong.
Oh, yeah?
Forever. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Very exciting.
Yeah.
All right,
so, yeah,
we're running a little bit late. Close things up. Journey to the Savage Planet. When's it coming out, man?
Very early next year. Well, it has to come out. That's right. Very, very early
or else
next year. Yeah. Otherwise, we're done. So yes. So please take a look.
And how are you feeling about it?
I'm excited about it. I think we're yeah. I feel good, man. I'm okay. It's fine. No, I think we're hitting on the humor. We're hitting on the sense of exploration. We've got a shit ton of work to do still with pacing and tuning and all that sort of stuff. To reward exploration. But the decisions we have to leave behind, I think we're good. So we still have a chance.
Scavengers, how's it looking? When's it coming out?
It's looking great. It'll come out sometime next year. Like right now, we've been doing early closed play tests. We're going to continue doing that, expanding the group throughout 2019. Anybody who wants to join in and play test on PC should go to scavengersgame.com, sign up. I'm trying to get as many people playing the game as early as possible so we can just learn and iterate and make the game better. We're going to put it out there when we think it's ready, and unless we're forced to.
Unless you're running out of time.
Unless we're running out of time. Yeah, at that point.
Chance of next gen?
What's that?
Is there a chance coming to next
What
gen?
is, that's a whole other topic. What is next gen now when they're releasing like iPhones? Like, you know what I mean? There's no next gen.
No, but there's a very concrete next generation for gaming, basically.
No, there's a new Xbox announced that no one gives a shit about because it's like 2% better than the last Xbox that no one bought last year. Like what the fuck? There's no next gen anymore. You've set me off.
My smartphone is next gen.
What is next gen?
That's it.
So it's not coming to next gen then?
I don't even want to touch that.
All right, that's fine. Mr. Romero, Empire of Sin.
Yeah,
when's it coming out?
It's coming out spring of 2020 to celebrate the 100-year anniversary of Prohibition.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, isn't that weird? Isn't that weird?
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
So anyway, yes, it's going really well. We love it. It's got so many systems, so much system soup that is tasting great.
That's on the box.
Systemic soup. It's a picture of you, a little star. Romero says good.
Is it on Switch day one?
Yeah, it's on Switch. Every time we deliver milestones, it's on everything, Switch included.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
And thank you for watching and listening to this episode of the Game Informer Show live from E3 2019. We'll be coming to you live also on Wednesday and Thursday with more editor impressions of games and more developer roundtables. You guys are welcome to come back at any point.
Sounds good.
All right.
Okay, great.
We'll be here tomorrow, same time.
Perfect.
Yeah, no problem.
Bye everybody. Thanks for tuning in.